Hey everybody, it's Bruno on NB, where it can't all be serious. And I rarely have a guest that I have to give this type of introduction, okay? It's like the old Grand Prix wrestling. Pesant 245 livres. Is that how much you weigh, Randy? Weighing 245 pounds from parts unknown. C'est lui. That's him. Randy, the Macho Dad Chevrier.
What's up, Bruno?
It's all good. Hey, you know what? I can't do that for a lot of people. And I got to tell you right off the bat, it's a real thrill to have you on my show to share our madness with the rest of the world. And I'm going to tell you something I don't think anybody has ever done this to me before they went on a show. And you're kind of one-upping me right off the bat. We're on the phone. I said, Randy, you ready to go? Let me put a shirt on. Dude, what do you do? Walk around with no shirt? You're up in me like, you know what I mean? You got muscles on muscles. You walk around with no shirt. What's going on with that?
Bruno, I'm going to two-up you because I'm not wearing any pants now either.
All right, everybody. Have a good night. We're done.
Yeah, that's the show. No, Bruno, you caught me, I come home from work. I wear a uniform. The uniform is made of Nomex, which is fire-resistant material because I work for the fire department. Even though I don't put out fires, I wear a fire-resistant suit in case someone sneaks up on me with a candle or something. And that material gets very hot. So when I get home after a full day in that suit, I rip it off. I was making dinner. You and I were talking, and I didn't feel like I needed to get dressed up to talk to you with you on the phone. But then you say we're going to shoot a show. So I said, well, let me put on a shirt. I figure we're only doing the top up. I didn't run to put on pants. I had two choices here, Bruno.
Yeah, I'm a little bit worried. I'm still a little worried. So you come home, take your clothes off.
Yeah.
Like you're al fresco, and you approach the range, boiling hot oil. And what do you cook? Sausage, metaphorically speaking? Or what the hell are you going to cook with that?
Bruno, listen. I'm a single dad, and this is my week without the kids. What I'm eating this week does not resemble what I eat when my children are here. When my children are here, I like to cook a meal. What I am eating tonight was something that I threw in the microwave. In fact, I've been so busy the last few times, and I think that's the premise of what we're going to talk about because you can never get a hold of me. But I had a lunch that I packed for work, and it was so busy at work today, I completely blew through lunch. So when I came home, like I said, I stripped off the work uniform. I threw the food in the microwave, and I shoveled it down. And then I started doing the dishes. So there was no open flame. There was no grill. There was no range. It was just me in the microwave. And then I ate my food. I had made a few phone calls, and then I started washing the dishes. Then you called me, and I was washing dishes while we were talking. And yeah, I'm by myself. Like I could do what I want.
But that's not the point. When the kids are there,
I wear clothes.
You have clothes on when you're cooking. I think that's the premise of the whole thing.
Yes. When I have children in my presence, I'm clothed. I'm clothed around children, Bruno.
Give me a second. I just got to call the police back. Yeah, he's good. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so there you go.
We're all good. So
I'm a nice boy, and I got a police check too to prove it. So my job requires me to have a vulnerable sector check around children, and I pass with flying colors. I'm a nice boy, but when I'm in the privacy of my own home, the shirt comes off.
That's a new show, Cook in the Nude with Chevy.
I don't cook in the nude, Bruno. I don't fry bacon naked. You know that.
Okay, well, I got to believe you, but unless people are living under a rock, especially in what we call the Canadiana, you're known from coast to coast. I'm going to tell you this. You're going to say, oh, whatever. Greatest long snapper in football history in Canada, at least. All right. Never botched the snap in a game, correct?
As far as I know.
Okay. But you did miss when we were at practice that one time at the academy. You didn't hit Coach Fasano in the head. You missed him. Okay.
I didn't miss. I didn't. Yeah.
Well, you can't miss that melon. How did you miss that melon? Right. I love that guy. So, but unless you're living under a rock, nobody knows what you did and all that kind of stuff. We're going to talk about that maybe in another show or something. But I just admire what you're doing right now. The elusive life of, a dad with 3 kids. That's crazy, right? 3 boys, beautiful boys. Like, walk us through what a normal day is for you.
Bruno, I don't know what normal is anymore. So I mentioned I work for the fire department. I used to ride on the fire trucks. After I retired from playing football with the Stampeders, I got on the fire department at 41 years old in 2017. I was working on the trucks, and I was working shift work. We used to have a 4-day on, 4-day off schedule. Also happened to coincide with time in my life that my marriage ended. So with children, became the difficult task of transitioning into a single fatherhood, which was it was challenging, especially when I was working shift work. I didn't see my kids a lot. You work daytimes. You start early in the morning. You work night times where you're at the fire hall overnight. And unfortunately, that shift isn't very conducive to being a single dad because I'm working a lot of times, and they were in elementary school. They needed lifts to school. They needed rides after school. So it was very tough. I transitioned during COVID to a day staff job, as they would call it. So I'm not in operations anymore. I don't respond to emergencies. I work as a community safety officer. That's my title. I do education outreach. So I do school presentation with seniors, new Canadians, any type of education and outreach to high risk communities. That's what I do. And I love my job. I absolutely love it. It was literally what I did when I wasn't playing football, being out in the community, teaching. I have a teaching degree, so it works well. Now, COVID was a blessing in disguise, Bruno. I mean, God, I was very lucky. I didn't have COVID only affected me and my family in that it inconvenienced us from the enrichments of life. I couldn't go to sports, couldn't go to restaurants. I didn't have anybody that was affected. So my COVID experience was different than other people's. But my personal experience it was great. I worked from home. I did my thing. I worked out. I wasn't over busy. I wasn't overtaxed. I had a good job. The job wasn't, we weren't open for the public. I wasn't going to schools. So it was very manageable. And so, I kind of enjoyed on an anonymity of work. I got my kids more, which was good. They were oftentimes home. We had dinners at the dinner table. My car was clean for the first time in 10 years because there was no goldfish crackers in the cracks. There was no juice boxes stuffed behind my back. Life was good. I went to the park. I played with my kids. I threw the football at them. We didn't go to the playground until they removed the yellow tape, but it was a good time. Then, I guess into last year, things opened up. And as things opened up, the sports began, the calls began for work. And where I am right now, you asked the day of my life, is it's busy. It's busy. My role as a community safety officer, especially this time of year, we're gearing up for Fire Prevention Week, which takes place the second week of October. So it kicks off on Thanksgiving Sunday and goes for a week. And it's like our Super Bowl for the community safety division. We're doing education, we're doing outreach. This year's theme is Cooking Safety Starts With You. We organize open houses. So I'm really busy at work on top of my normal workload. And then it's also the time of year where my kids, 2 of my boys play football. Their season is in full swing. And at the same time, all 3 of my boys play hockey, and we're in evaluations. They're starting. So it's nuts, man. Like this morning, I was up at 5 a.m. I had to be at the office before 7. We have this big community safety trailer that we bring to schools to do for education. We did that. I did a podcast at the Kirby Center for seniors 50 plus. And we talked about fire safety and fall prevention in older adults. I did that. I did a whole bunch of other work in between. And then tonight I came home, shirts off, eat my lunch finally at 7:00 at night, and talk to your beautiful face. I don't have my kids this week, but on the weeks I have my kids, Bruno, as you know, because it's been so hard to reach me, I'm usually running around all night. In fact, if I was an Uber driver, I'd be very rich during the, what do they call that? The boost hour? What do they call that? The surge pricing after 5 p.m. between 5 and 8. They should have, I should have surge pricing for my children, because I'm telling you, I'm running, man. So I run around, but it's only a small chapter of life. As you know, you have two wonderful boys that were involved in sports, and it flies by. So, yeah, am I purposely elusive and mysterious? No. But am I leading an exciting life? Not by any means. Most days, like probably everyone out there that listens to your show, I'm trying to make the head stay above water, breathe, and figure out where land is so I could start swimming. That's what it is,
That's
bro.
that's absolutely crazy. But you know what? That's the life of a responsible parent. And a lot of people, we joke around quite a bit. I think, trying to keep a straight face sometimes when we get together is kind of funny, but we let off some steam and everything. But to be a responsible parent, right? Being there for your kids and all that kind of stuff, it's no easy task. I mean, we joke around about not being available, but um, I think the reason why it's really profound for you to mention all these things is because people have you kind of, crystallized as, holding the Grey Cup. And when you're winning, both here in Edmonton, you got what, two Grey Cups, right? Two Grey Cup rings? Three.
Yeah.
Well, you got two in Edmonton, right?
One in Edmonton, two in Calgary.
Two in Calgary. So they just think that, no problems, right? You walk around with that jersey on all the time, and then nobody figures that, as soon as that comes off, and the career is kind of over, and then what? So let me ask you something. Like, I'm going to ask you two questions. Number one is, this is a tough one, but when you were playing, you had already had kids and stuff. Did you realize it was going to be this hectic? It's kind of preparing new parents kind of thing.
Well, again, my situation, it's not unique, but it's definitely not, I don't think it's the norm, but I'm a single dad, right? My kids split time. And even in my single dad friends, that have children that go back and forth. Very few of my friends have them 50% of the time like I do, So um, it's not. I'm not saying it's unique, but I'm going to tell you the truth. What I wasn't prepared for is to be mom, dad, house cleaner, cook, coach, referee in the fights, prison warden, janitor. I was prepared that I would take on some of those roles, but on a daily basis, when I have my kids, I'm taking on all those roles, like their mom is on the other end. Like there's no doubt. I'm not saying it's a one-way street, but I wasn't prepared for that, and I would say many dads, many men growing up, it's not what they were programmed for, I was programmed in a time where roles were generally defined for men and women. They were changing, not to where they are right now, but definitely I wasn't prepared for that. I mean, I spent my whole football career preparing for life after football, and the only thought that I had was career life. It wasn't like, oh man, I gotta, like, I'm not, listen, I'm an open book. People ask me questions. I'm not gonna lie on your show. When I was married, I worked. I played football in the off seasons. I taught. I did speaking. I had like 15 different jobs every season because, CFL, I didn't make a lot of money. I was, the water boy and the equipment manager made more than me, but I loved what I did. And I kept coming back because I loved it. And, you mentioned that I was skilled at long snapping, and I do believe that I was very good at that. But in the off seasons, I had to work. I had to grind. And so I went to work. And when we did have kids, I did the bulk of the go out of the house and work. And their mom did the bulk of the take care of the house, which included paying bills and all these things that I never really did. So all of a sudden, I'm 42 years old. I'm sitting there in a room full of boxes thinking, wow, what's the first step I do? Well, the first step I do is I got to figure out how to automate my bills. I got to figure out how to do this. So all these things that I wasn't preparing for because I didn't plan for that. No one plans for that. I'm sure any of your colleagues, male or female, that have been through a separation, a divorce, loss of a partner, maybe through health concerns, no one prepares for that. I was preparing for career. Like I said, I was a realtor. I was a mortgage broker. I did sales. I did radio. I did TV. I wrote for the newspaper. I did fitness. you name it, I did it in anticipation of my football career ending at some point. And when my football career ended, I kind of slid into the fire department. I worked hard to get on, but I was like, okay, I made it. I got something that I can do for the rest of my life. But what wound up really being the challenge for me is the role that I'm presently in, which is how do I keep it all going without missing something and without feeling that guilt and that strain when you do miss something, and the conflict that it produces, right? So that's the part I wasn't prepared for, to be truly honest about your question.
Yeah, and you know what? We joke around a lot, like I said previously, but we've been wanting to get on this show, and people totally mistakenly see, especially you and Sheldon, when you guys did the Chevy and Nasty show. You guys were dumb jockey guys. Hey, how you
Yeah.
doing, or whatever. Great show, by the way. That was way before the internet went viral and all that crap. Everybody looked forward to listening to you. Maybe the only other show that was maybe a little bit more anticipated was when Tony Spallettini was with Jerry Forbes and he was Giuseppe the cement guy. But one of the things that really stands out, because I don't know, I was kind of fortunate enough to get to know you just before you kind of retired, and you were thinking of the afterlife and this, that, and the other thing. And I know that you told me stuff, but maybe this catches you off guard, but you couldn't do it on your own. And one of the things that you were transitioning, and there are a lot of people you started kind of talking to, because you and I are very similar. We don't have any immediate family here, right? And so we can go to Jimmy that we grew up with, maybe on the phone and stuff, but that must have been really tough. And I know you leaned on a few people. I don't care if you mention them, but the importance of opening up to somebody, right? Yeah.
Yeah, no, what's interesting is as I was transitioning away from football, 2000, I believe it was about 2016, into 2016, I was in this bridge year. It was a bridge year before I got in the fire department. I had taken a job with Reebok. That was about the time I met you and Coach Fasano through Coach Tom Higgins. And I mean, we started football academy. Unfortunately, it didn't go how we wanted it to, but the people that I met through that is more valuable than any sort of business experience I got, because I met you and Tony and obviously cemented a great relationship with Coach Tom Higgins. And, I've always been that guy that's been drawn towards mentorship. I think that's the type of person I've tried to be. And, talking with Tony Fasano, Coach Fasano, who coached at the UFC, is obviously one of your best friends. He helped me out tremendously. You helped me out tremendously in terms of, the type of dad you try to be with your kids and how you try to be there for them. You go visit your kids playing baseball, you bring them to camps, you're very present in their activities, and it shows in how they reciprocate that love back to you. And so, taking that example from you, from Tony, who had been through a similar situation like me, he came to my house one day and he made tomato sauce for me because he's like, yeah, we're just going to make sure that you could throw some pasta and you got so those types of things. And you're absolutely right. When you live in a place that's not your neighborhood, your hood growing up, you can't go back to your old buddies. They're a 5-hour plane ride away from me. You know what I mean? And over time, I mean, I've been in Calgary almost now as long as I've been in Montreal. Not quite yet, but some of those relationships have dried up a little bit because, I was busy building a life with family and kids here, and you can't maintain all those relationships when it's busy. So for me, I was very fortunate to find the guys like you, because the other thing, football is an amazing sport, teaches you so much about life. But I played so long that I almost went through the equivalent of 5 careers. I played 16 years. The average career is 3 years. I went through 5 cycles of a career where by the end of it, when I started football, there was like a Nokia tap phones, to the end where guys, you don't even have to leave your city. You could call all your people from your old town, right? So the locker room changed while I was there. And as I get older, these guys stay the same age. When they're going out to the bars after a game, I'm running home because I got to get my kids to Timbits practice. My life cycle changed. And when I left that locker room, it wasn't like the connections that I made my last couple of years weren't the same as the connections I had from my first few years playing. And some of my best friends in football are the guys that I played with when I was young and I could hang out. So when I was out of football, I wasn't really close to a lot of the guys that were still playing. And the guys that were gone, like you mentioned, Sheldon, are some of the guys that I still maintain contact with. But you know what I noticed is so many people after their sport career is done, it takes a long time for them to find themselves, to find what they can do, to replace that identity that they were, right? So for me, having you, Tony, Tom, a few guys in the fire department that I was really able to lean on once I got in there, because then I went through that transition in terms of my personal life. That was super important. You need to be able to open up and talk to guys. And the more people you talk to, what I've learned is, again, I'm a very open book. I won't talk bad. Like I'll talk about what's happening with me. And the reason I do that is because I know if it's happening with me, it's probably happening with you. It's probably happening with him. Now, guys, being the way we are, when we talk about guys, we're, very macho. We're not going to admit problems when we're sitting around the table eating chicken wings. But I'm usually that guy that will say something. And a lot of times walking to the car in the parking lot, walking around the corner when the guys aren't around, that's when you have the real talk. Someone says, hey, this is what's happening with me. Can you help me out? Can you give me any advice? And I like that I had people like that were for me, and I like to be that for people. So yeah, it's super important to have some people you can open up to, because otherwise you really do feel like you're going through it alone. And again, when the football career ended, I felt like I was going through it alone. I was like, man, I gave 16 years to this league, 11 years to this team, and not even a phone call a week after. You know what I mean? I was like, what the heck? Like, and you feel like nobody cares, but everyone moves on. And then, when gosh, you said, I'm remembering, like, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear, but I remember when I was going through a pretty tough time, and, everyone's like, oh, that's so bad. So, and, Bruno says, I call Bruno up, we're talking, and he's like, listen, he's like, I'm not trying to be mean to you. He's like, but no one gives a shit. And it's true. And you weren't being callous, but I understand what you meant. People will say, oh, that's too bad. And then they'll move on from your problem because their lives are more important. And I thought about that, and it's true. Like no one cares as much about your thing that you're going through as you do. And that thing you're going through gets as much or as little energy as you devote to it. You know what I mean? And when you gave me that talk, it really opened my eyes. It's funny, that just popped up right now. That was a very poignant moment for me, because when you said that, I felt like I didn't have to justify the path that my life was on, because nobody, goes into football wanting to get cut. Even when in the fire department, I mean, I got on the job for 3 years. And then 3 years into it, I applied for a job that most guys would wait a few years to. But I saw an opportunity to help me get my kids on a more regular basis. And I thought, well, geez, I love putting out fires. I love being the big, strong, funny guy in the hall. But I love my kids more than all of that. So I'm willing to change careers again. And even within the fire service, you almost feel like you have to be like, well, I did it because of this and this, because everyone wants to know, well, Chevy, when are you coming back on the floor? When are we going to see you putting out fires? Because that's what you apply to be a firefighter for. You don't apply to go talk to old ladies and do school visits. That's kind of a side thing, but it's like that people don't give a shit thing that you told me applies in this too. Like I don't need to justify why I'm doing it, because they actually don't care if I come back on the floor or not. I'm not saying it callously, but if I work the rest of my career as a community safety officer, or if I jump back into the fire, it's either like, oh, that's nice, he's back, or hey, he's over there. But they're not thinking about you all day and all night unless they're your people. And that really allowed me to move forward with decision making with a sense of, yeah, you know what? I don't need to justify the things I do, because I usually do things, I feel like I always do things for the right reasons, whether it's my kids, whether it's career, whether it's life. I don't feel like I need to justify, because I'm giving energy to justify things to people who actually don't care. And it was very important. But there are people that do care, and those are the people who you listen to.
Hey, you know what? I didn't even throw that out for a shout out to me. It was just like I forgot half the stuff, but I got to tell you, Randy, I remember the first time I heard that was with Coach Marcel Belfoy, who is right now, he had a good career in the CFL as a coach, and now he's at the GGs. And I remember talking to him because he got a rough ride, and he was with the Rough Riders too, but he got a rough ride in Winnipeg just before they turned the corner. And he said his late dad told him this. He goes, 95% of the people kind of don't give a shit. It's your problem. And the other five are glad it's not their problem, even in a bad way. They kind of say that. And it's funny you remember that because I never meant it that way. I was just like, Randy, come on, let's go. Let's do this,
But
man.
but
And
Bruno, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. You talk about job loss, talk about divorce, talk about COVID, everything everyone went to. Either they don't give a shit or they're just happy it's not their problem. There's very few people that genuinely empathize with you. And usually the people that empathize with you are usually those 4 or 5 people that are really close to you, whether it's your family, whether it's a best friend, a spouse, a loved one. But otherwise, listen, Bruno, during COVID, I had a tumor in my neck the size of a golf ball. It was like bigger than this iPhone case sticking out of my neck. For years, I neglected my health. And then I decided, you know what, I'm going to get it checked out. Anyhow, turned out I had a tumor in my neck. The end of the story is that it was benign. But man, I'm telling you, it was scary sitting in COVID, working from home. I still didn't have my kids. I didn't see them for 10 days in a row. I had no family. I was isolated. There was no one to go for a beer with, no one to come over. It was literally lonely, me and this thing living in my neck. And you talk to people, and it's kind of like, yeah, people don't care because you know what? They can't go to the gym. They can't go to a restaurant. Their kid can't play hockey. And it's like, and I'm sitting here with this thing like, oh, is it, you go to, I went to the doctor. She tells me it could be the big bad cancer, and I left the room. I'm like, man, it's not like the movies. I don't hear any violins playing. There's no sad music. It's just me and sitting in the car. And do I choose to go get a donut or a coffee? Because that's all there is. And it's like, yeah, nobody cares. And I'm not saying in a callous way, but you got to understand that the only person that, and I've learned it, the only person that starts to pick yourself up is you. You create that momentum. People care when you start doing something positive. People care when you start bringing them along for a ride. They don't care when you're in the ditch. Not too many people will come and get you out of the ditch except the person you can call.
Well, I remember that. Unfortunately, I remember that text coming in because you had just been diagnosed, and I remember I was jogging. I was in San Diego, and I was like, I just stopped, and it was just like, and I really don't mean this in a bad way. And I'm like, holy shit! If the macho dad gets this, like I'm 174 years older than you are, and I'm like, wow! And it just stopped me in the tracks. I remember going in the elevator. I didn't know how to respond. I think I texted you and then I called you. But I'm going to tell you something. Another learning I learned from somebody that I hold near and dear is that never seek somebody else out until you find yourself. So unless you know yourself and unless you're comfortable with yourself and unless you're ready to go to war by yourself, don't bring people on. And I've been blessed, this is about you, but I've been super, super blessed to get to know guys like you, Tom Higgins. Like, you don't get nicer, stronger human beings than guys like him and Coach Fasano. And, I name a whole bunch of guys here locally and back home. You got Shreko, you got Cody Ehrman. I look up to Cody Ehrman, like one of the local coaches here, kidney transplant. And like, man, the guy's back on the field caring about kids, right? So, but that's great. So listen, promise me you're going to be back part 2. We're going to have a little fun on part 2. So this was great, Randy. Promise next time.
You know what we should call the podcast? We should have a podcast. Remember that song, Shut Up? Shut Up You Face. You remember that song? What's the matter you?
Oh my God.
That's what our podcast should be. Shut Up You Face.
Randy, we got so much in common other than you're tall and you can take your shirt off in public. We're both Italian.
I only take it off in private, Bruno, and not in front of the children.
Yeah, and you know what? You're fluent in French. I grew up in French, right? So It's all good. Okay, we're gonna check in next time. All right, Chevy. Talk to you.